Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has resigned and left the country in a military helicopter, reportedly flown to India. Protests by students, which started in July over an issue of government jobs and quotas, has finally culminated today with the head of state fleeing the country. On Sunday, at least 91 people were killed, including 13 police officers, and hundreds more were injured in a fresh round of violence between police and anti-government protesters. Now, street protests are not new in Bangladesh, but the recent violence has been described as some of the worst in living memory. In fact, on Sunday, the death toll was the highest in any single day from any protest in Bangladesh's recent history. Since the protest began in July, 300 people have been killed. So what caused the daughter of the country's founding president and the world's longest-serving female head of government to call it quits? In this video, I'll tell you what's happening in Bangladesh right now and also what it means for India. Now, on Sunday, an indefinite nationwide curfew was put in place, starting 6 p.m. on Sunday to curb any violence. And despite this, hundreds of thousands of protesters filled the streets of Dhaka and defied that curfew and marched. Now, unlike the protests that happened in July, which ended in a deadly crackdown, soldiers and the police did not intervene as much on Sunday. According to AFP, demonstrators were seen in Dhaka surrounded by a tightly packed crowd that was cheering them on as they waved a Bangladeshi flag on top of an armored car as the soldiers stood by and watched. They were chanting 1, 2, 3, 4, Sheikh Hasina as a dictator has become a popular chant across the country. Then a respected former army chief demanded that the government immediately withdraw troops and allow the protests to continue. This matters because in the last month, Sheikh Hasina has leaned heavily on the military to stay in power. But their support is also seeming to wane over the weekend, and it came to head today when the army of the country reportedly gave Hasina a 45-minute ultimatum to resign. Now the Bangladeshi Army Chief General Vakar-uz-Zaman has announced that the army will form an interim government and has appealed to protesters to return to the path of peace. Well, the next question is what happened in July and what were they protesting? Now, the students began by protesting against a reservation system that the government had announced, in which government jobs, 30% of the government jobs, would be reserved for the families of veterans who had fought the Bangladeshi War of Independence against Pakistan in 1971. Now, the protesting students argued that the system was discriminatory and favored the supporters of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's Awami League party. They demanded a merit-based system to replace that quota. Now, over the last month, security forces have used live ammunition, tear gas, stun grenades, rubber bullets, and shotgun pellets to disperse the protesters. Police were also granted shoot-on-sight orders, and to make matters worse, the internet was shut down and reliable information was difficult to come by. The Human Rights Watch has quoted one Dhaka resident who left the country who said, and I'm quoting, "I have never seen such cruelty. The security forces kept shooting. They were shooting at such young people. They even shot at bystanders if they tried to help the students." The Supreme Court of the country has since then taken down that reservation and made a rule that 93% of the jobs in government will be merit-based. And although the protesters' initial demands were largely met, the movement transformed into a wider anti-government movement, calling for the Prime Minister's resignation over the excess of violence used to control the initial protests. In fact, the United Nations also called for an end to the shocking violence and urged restraint from the Bangladeshi politicians and security forces. The UN's human rights chief said the government must cease targeting those who are participating peacefully in protests and immediately release those who have been arbitrarily detained and restore full internet access. Now, Sheikh Hasina initially remained defiant. After all of this, she described those protesting against her administration as terrorists who were out to destabilize her nation. Now, why are people of Bangladesh so angry? The BBC reports that protests have been long coming because even though Bangladesh has been one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and especially in the region, experts point out that the growth has not translated to jobs for university graduates. They say that the estimates suggest that 18 million young Bangladeshis are still looking for jobs, and university graduates face higher rates of unemployment than their less educated peers. On one hand, Sheikh Hasina's 15-year rule has seen Bangladesh transform itself by building new roads and bridges and factories and even metro rail. So basically, when the government is not able to create new jobs, it just builds large infrastructure to keep the economy moving. Per capita income has tripled in the last decade. The World Bank estimates more than 25 million people have been lifted out of poverty in 20 years. But on the other hand, her 15-year power reign has also been full of accusations of forced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and the crushing of opposition figures and her critics. Now, she denies these charges. Her government often accuses the opposition parties of fueling protests. But critics believe that the country's growth has only been beneficial to those close to the Prime Minister and the ruling Awami League Party, and numerous corruption allegations are now looming over the government. In addition to the corruption allegations, there are also concerns that Hasina is becoming increasingly autocratic and the economy's success has been at the cost of democracy and human rights. In fact, South Asia Director of Human Rights, Meenakshi Ganguly, told the BBC that for 3 consecutive elections, there's been no credible, free and fair polling process. The main opposition, Bangladeshi Nationalist Party, boycotted the election in 2014 and in 2024, saying free and fair elections is not possible under Sheikh Hasina's rule and called for a neutral caretaker administration. All of these demands were rejected by Hasina. But Monday proved to be a day of fast and crucial developments. Some could argue even that it was a turning point in the history of the country. Sheikh Hasina, the 76-year-old daughter of Bangladesh's founder, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, she'd been ruling the country since 2009. She quit and fled, according to a report by the PTI. The announcement came from the Army Chief General Waqar-ur-Zaman, who was addressing the nation. He said an interim government will be formed, and he also reassured everybody that justice will be ensured for each and every killing. He said it was now everyone's responsibility to remain calm. Together, we hope to go towards a better situation. I am taking full responsibility, the general said. He went on to say that the country has suffered a lot, the economy has been hit, and many people have been killed. It's time to stop the violence. I hope after my speech, the situation will improve. He said he would talk to the president to form an interim government and hold talks with the main opposition parties and civil society members, but not with the Awami League. He also said that if the situation gets better, there's no need for an emergency, vowing that with the new authorities, they will prosecute all the murders of the deadly protests in the last few weeks. Now, the situation is fluid, and we are still in India waiting for a response from the Ministry of External Affairs to find out how India is reacting. But here are the implications for India. For now, with Bangladesh on the brink and its head of state leaving talks of an interim government, the Border Security Force in India has ordered a high alert along the entire Indo-Bangladesh border. The Border Security Force has formations right now across the 4,000-odd kilometer border that India shares with Bangladesh along West Bengal, Tripura, Meghalaya, Assam and Mizoram. The BSF has instructed all field commanders to be on ground and immediately deploy all personnel on the border, according to a senior officer speaking to the PTI. BSF Director General, acting at this point, Daljit Singh Chaudhary, and other senior commanders have landed in Kolkata, from what we understand, to review the security situation, they said. Earlier, last week, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee had said that the Trinamool Congress-led state government will provide shelter to people from violent-hit Bangladesh if they come knocking on our doors, she said. She said, I cannot speak anything about Bangladesh as it's another country. The Indian government will have to speak about that. But if helpless Bangladeshi people come to West Bengal's door, we will give them shelter based on the UN resolution that neighbors will respect refugees, Mamata Banerjee said. But speaking today, on Monday, Mamata Banerjee has appealed to the people of the state to maintain peace and avoid provocation. Declining to comment on the developments in Bangladesh, she said it's a matter for the External Affairs Ministry to respond to. But the question right now is for the diplomatic implications for the government. A report by the Financial Express talked about India having a vested interest in stability and security in Bangladesh as a neighbor. This is what the report says. The rise of radical elements and the influx of refugees and potential cross-border tensions have all become concerns that India must navigate carefully. Moreover, India's approach to the crisis will be closely watched by other regional players like China and Russia, who have so far remained silent. Now, like I said, India's Ministry of External Affairs has not made a statement so far on the fact that Sheikh Hasina is in India. The report from the Financial Express goes on to say that India's diplomatic engagement with Bangladesh has been robust and marked with multiple visits from Hasina to New Delhi. However, the recent events necessitate further re-evaluation of India's strategy. Ensuring a stable and friendly government in Dhaka is crucial for India's regional security and economic interests. So as we record this video at this point, we're waiting for a comment from the Ministry of External Affairs, and we're watching closely to see how the situation develops in Bangladesh.